So I heard that Red Hat is working on depreciating Xorg, and I just figured we're gonna fire up the Window Manager series. I posted a video a couple weeks back about my adventures with Hyperland. I'm already rage quitting Hyperland because of several things. Specifically, I hate the workspace layout and how that's managed. And then there's a couple of logic things that I don't necessarily appreciate with like their tiling logic because I'm opinionated. So I decided, you know what? I'm kind of just a little bit disillusioned about tiling sometimes, and I just want a good solid floating window manager. So let's look at a floater. In this case, we're looking. Well, one of my favorite floating window managers or stacking window managers is called OpenBox. I posted a video on that previously in the series where apparently people really liked my theme. So I remade the same exact thing here, except that rather than using Gentoo, I had to install a questionable operating system that may or may not ultimately get me extremely frustrated with it like it normally does. And if you guys know what that distribution is, it is obviously Arch Linux. And yes, we did bust out our System 76 wallpaper package with this, and this is what I've been using. It is a window manager. I've got my Rofi. Let me pull up a terminal here. Well, actually, yeah, enable the foot server. Pull up my terminal. It's a floating window manager, so obviously I've got the title bar, which I can turn off, but I've more or less just left them turned on. And let's see. Let's pull up Thunar. We've got our file manager. We've got that. We've got our web browsers. Let's see. Yeah, it's not gonna pull up anything super important. Oh. Well, hi Brody. How's it going? Pretty good. Okay. But yeah, they've got this fancy little GitHub Pages website, and it is fairly well maintained. They just pushed out a release last week. I'm actually on version 0.6.3, which is the modern version. And the one thing I really appreciate about LabWC is that it is backwards compatible with an OpenBox configuration, down to like the theming. Obviously, there's going to be a couple unique things about it because it's a Wayland compositor and it's not a window manager, so of course there's going to be some differences. But I just figured let's explore the configuration a little bit here. So let's go back to the desktop here. We'll close these windows here because we're trying to do Emacs. So if I go into .config/labwc, you can see that I've got a few files in here. All these files are generated by default. In order to find them, I pulled up my terminal here and I ran sudo find on root with an iname, and I just looked for LabWC. Gave it my password, and you can see where it's checking all my Btrfs snapshots because I've been tinkering. I can find the file here in user share doc labwc, and all those files are there. So all I did was I copied this folder down, I put it into here, and I just started kind of just poking around. Key warning: if you're going to be testing this window manager, you actually want to do this first because the people that developed this window manager are Swedish. So as a result, in this environment file here, these are all the environment variables that LabWC is going to read. The default keyboard layout is Swedish. And I didn't realize that until I went to try to exit Vim. Like, literally, because the Swedish keyboard, the letters, for the most part, are relatively the same until you get to the symbols. And then, next thing you know, you can't colon Q. You can't even shift ZZ because the shift key is even different. But yeah, this file here, you declare a couple variables. Don't change the XDG current desktop away from WL roots, if you're wanting to use something like the WL roots screen recording. So like this package here, XDG desktop portal WLR. You want to keep the XDG current desktop as WL roots because this is a WL roots based compositor. Like pretty much everything that I'm going to be covering on this series for the most part. But you can see where I set my keyboard layout. And then it's got the default options, which it looks like it's swapping around a couple of keys. I'm not 100% certain on that one. I have to look into that one. Then we got the Mozilla variable to enable Wayland. That way, you know, your Firefox works. They actually have this there by default. And of course, these icons that I'm using are the Breeze cursors, because well, they set them up by default. And I'm using some Qt applications with this, so I already have the Breeze cursors set up, so I'm using them. And then WLR, no hardware cursors, some Java stuff, and then of course I'm setting Qt5CTs. That way I can set my Qt themes. But if we look at just like OpenBox, it is configured in XML. If you're a new person and you're used to using like an i3 configuration file, this one is going to frustrate you because this dates back to like the origins of HTML coding itself, which how many people actually still design websites in raw HTML? I don't know. But this is the main configuration file. It is rc.xml. And it comes by default very short, and you can add to it. In fact, you can add so much that they included this other file here, rc.xml all, where this file is much bigger. Doom Emacs is telling me that there's a line count of 387 compared to 64, of where this one is fully loaded. So we've got all the options in here. I haven't quite figured out how to do folds in this, to be honest with you. I think it's tab. Yeah, we can't fold that. Okay. But you can see where they go through and they very verbosely explain every single option. Which, it's pretty cool. And then, you know, I actually kind of just don't mind that they've got like these configuration files broke out. I know that on a lot of my configurations, I put all my config options in one file, which you know, obviously probably not like best practice. Yeah, I know, I'm aware, but that's just something that I've always done. But you know, this workflow here where it's just like putting things in multiple files, that's actually pretty cool. But yeah, if you want to customize your theme, you can do that here. But for the themes themselves, let's go ahead and close out of this here. So what I did was I just went off to the internet and I found an Arc Dark theme, because you know that's my preferred theme is Arc Dark. That's what this theme is. It's in your distributions package manager most likely. All I did was I basically just googled Arc Dark for OpenBox, and then I put it into .local share themes, and you can see that I've got my Arc themes in here, and all of my Arc themes have an OpenBox 3 folder, because that is the environment variable that is necessary for the OpenBox standards for the theme. Has to be in an OpenBox version 3 format. So if we look into that, you can see there are more XBM and XML files, but there's also a theme RC. So if we look at that theme RC, it is basically the same theme RC that I very quickly looked at earlier. So yeah. It's pretty simplistic format. Once you wrap your head around the cancer that is XML, which is surprisingly simplistic once you actually realize that you have to both open and close your lines. I know that's a foreign concept, but like I said, if you work with HTML, XML is no problem. But yeah, it's a very quick look because this is a very simplistic window manager, and you know, it's pretty cool that simplistic because it does have a couple requirements, and I should probably actually pull up a file manager to show this. So if I go into .config LabWC, so that way I can get like graphical representation. And let's look at auto starts here and just see how many things I'm auto starting. Not a huge amount, but you can see I'm calling my themes right here at the very top. I should probably set up like some kind of syntax highlighting. OpenBox by default does call for SwayBG, but it's not going to pull it in as a dependency on Arch Linux. So you'll need to install SwayBG separately. And by default, it's not going to check for this an image. It's by default just going to set a solid black color. And then OpenBox, or well, LabWC does not actually handle monitor configuration on its own, like some other Wayland compositors. So stuff like Sway, Hyperland, they've got their own utilities for managing the actual screen format itself. Instead, what LabWC is going to do is it's going to ask that you use a third-party tool that interacts directly with WL-Roots itself, because the way that the Wayland landscape works is that in this case is that you have Wayland, which is the protocol. For lab in the context of compositors or standalone compositors like this series is going to cover, LabWC is more similar to a X11 window manager than not, because all LabWC is, it translates calls back to WL roots, which in this case it treats WL roots as the display server. So I could argue that I'm not using Wayland, I'm using WL roots, which is using the Wayland protocol. So I guess I'm using Wayland after all. Which in this case, it's actually pretty cool, especially if you've used Xrandr for a lot of scripts. There's a Wayland variant of it called WLRandr, and that's what I'm using right here. You can see I'm calling my output scripts, I'm calling my position, I'm telling it that I want this monitor turned on, and you can see that I've got my other one, and so on. You can see that I am launching Waybar, which, if you don't know what Waybar is, it's a bar. If you use Polybar, you've probably used Waybar before. This is bone stock Waybar. I've done absolutely nothing with it. But yeah, we've got Mako, which is a notification daemon. I might post a video on Mako later. Who knows? But for the screen timeout, I'm using Sway Idle, which hooks Sway Lock and WLRandr. So Sway Idle is a utility that just checks to see if you're actively using your computer. I got it waiting for in the range of 300 seconds, which is about 5 minutes. And 5 seconds after that, I'm going to call WLRandr and say, hey, I want this one, this one, this one. They're over here, yes, but I also want them to turn off. And then I'm calling the foot server, which is my terminal, but for some reason this call doesn't seem to be working. I need to dig into that one. I'm calling the XFCE pull kit because that's just what I'm using. Because, you know, it looks a little bit better than the LXQT. It doesn't pull in nearly the dependencies that the KDE one does, and honestly, in the context of this, where I'm using raw GTK4, not libadwaita utilities, it looks a lot better than like the GNOME poll kit daemon. Emacs, I'm trying to launch it into daemon. I don't know if it's actually working. Thunar is not working. KDE Connect here is also not working. So there's something going on with this file here as to where my auto starts aren't actually auto starting. And you know what? I actually think I just noticed it. Fixed. But yeah, let's talk about the neat things here. So there is a menu. It does supply its own menu. However, this is not a dynamic menu like you see with other utilities that give you menus. Instead, what it is, you get a menu file that you actually have to manually declare yourself. I'm cheating with this because I'm using a utility that generates the menu for me. But you can see where you set up all your variables. You can set this to be whatever you want. It doesn't have to be applications. If you've delved into the depths of OpenBox configurations, you've seen some people have some really awesome menus where they might be able to pick like a song playlist hooking MPD that not only will show you the play progress, but also allow you to dynamically adjust the volume from a right-click menu. Which I don't know how far down the rabbit hole you can do that with LabWC, because there are some differences. But you could probably do that. But what I'm actually using to generate my menu is I'm using the LabWC-menu generator. This is an AUR package, so if I just do an YASS, just like this, which I'm using Yay because it will also index the AUR. You can see that it is available in the AUR right there. It's going to pull in as a get thing, but it's a really, really small program, so you don't even really notice the compile time. In fact, what we'll do is we'll just reinstall it here for the fun of it. And it's just going to give us a couple options. Yes. Git clone, pull it, sources ready, make, install. Password for the sake of password, install. And then it takes about as much time as it does for like Grub to generate the config, because I'm hooking ButterFS snapshots with it. It takes just as long for that to happen as it does for this menu to generate. Which I'm probably going to be making like a keybind so that every time I hit like a super shift R, which I set to tell LabWC to reindex its configuration, I might tell it to hook that menu generator at the same time. Just so I can have a relatively up-to-date menu. Just kind of spitballing ideas there, but I am working through this window manager, learning some of the ins and outs of it. It's working out pretty good. It does have quite a bit of documentation to read, but it's also relatively usable out of the box too. Just bear in mind the default terminal that's going to ask for is Alacrity, which I'm using Foot, so of course I had some issues with it, and of course I disabled VT switching on my system, which led me to finding out the hard way that SSH was also disabled out of the box on Arch Linux, because we just can't have nice things. And in fact, I didn't even have OpenSSH installed, so I had to do the good old let's walk over to the server room and hard press the power button and watch it shut down the fun way. Good thing I don't really care about this installation of Arch Linux. But anyways, guys, yeah, that's just another rambling video where you're just like, I'm just gonna ramble about another window manager. Pretty cool, right? I know I said we were gonna look at Wayfire. I still can't figure out how to get Wayfire to actually work. And in this case, when I went to install Wayfire on Arch Linux, Wayfire apparently uses its own binary of WL roots, and apparently they conflict with each other, which means that it will break basically all of my other window managers just install Wayfire. Don't understand why, but apparently that's a thing. But anyways, I'm out of here. Links in the description if you need to contact me about something.